Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Record Express. I am digital media editor Warren Frey, and with me I have, once again,
Staff writer at the Journal of Commerce, Russell Hixson, more than 100 years old publication.
that's right. I thought you were going to say you were 100 years old, which is
No,
untrue. Untrue.
I'm 31.
Although,
Getting up
in the
there.
past year and a half of working from home, the days have blended together. We could very well be 100 years old in pandemic years.
I mean, it sure feels like it when I wake up in the morning sometimes. I heard.
And it does for me because I'm an old man to begin with. So
Yes.
anyway, nobody cares about that. What's going on with construction, Russ?
Yeah, so in BC, we have a new health order that's going to go into effect later this month on the 13th. And then it's a proof of vaccine order. So for certain activities in British Columbia, you're going to have to prove that you have partial or full vaccination. I think later in October, it's going to be requiring proof of full vaccination to go to certain restaurants, to do, group workouts, certain activities, gatherings. And so naturally, I was curious how this is going to impact construction. So I talked to Dave Bespally, who is the president of the Council of Construction Associations in BC, and he does a lot of work, doing liaison work with WorkSafe BC. And he noted that there's not, it just empowers construction employers to be a bit more aggressive. There's nothing specific in the language of what the province has said that targets construction, but he said it can empower some employers, especially prime contractors and large ones, to say if you're not vaccinated, you can't come on this site, or if you're not vaccinated or you refuse to disclose your vaccination status, you can't work in this certain confined clustered area and different things like that. And he says as the mandate goes into effect, it's probably going to shift most workplace culture, regardless, because you're not going to be able to do a lot of different things. Even with the associations, doing conferences and networking events, that's all going to be impacted by this. So he says it's going to change the culture. And he also noted that there's likely going to be some court case that is going to decide these things. He said we're kind of, and I'll quote him, we're in between two worlds right now, where you have people talking about their rights and freedoms. And then you also have people saying, well, this is a public health emergency. And those are going to come to a head in the courts. And he said it's just a matter of time. And he believes that the precedent is pretty strongly in favor of the health orders, because we've done things in the past like conscription during times of war. There's been other vaccination efforts in the past where it was mandated. He said it's pretty clear that in times of emergency, your rights and freedoms can be curtailed a bit for public health and safety. So we'll see how all that shakes out.
And you mentioned with associations, I not just me, I think this is out to all VRCA members. They sent a thing out this morning saying that we're being them, moving their gala, which was Awards of Excellence gala, which was set for, I think, late October. It's now going to January 2022. And they specifically said you're going to have to show proof of vaccination to go to this thing in January, like double vaccination. They made a point of it.
Yeah, and I don't even think that's just them. That's the province is saying you have to do this. But I know VRCA has gone even further. I saw an email that they sent out about their golf tournament where it's outside, and I don't think that's impacted. But they said if you can show that if you're double vaccinated, you're entered into a raffle to win a big prize. So they're strongly encouraging it. And I think culture is just going to shift towards, if you want to participate in a lot of different social things, you're going to have to prove that you're vaccinated.
And Canada hasn't had anywhere near the problems America has had with trying to encourage people to get vaccinated. They're being pushed back, but there's still a little bit of that, so it doesn't hurt that they're doing these things.
Yeah, I mean, you had Trudeau on the campaign trail recently, and he was getting heckled, and there were a lot of protesting, and I believe some of that was because of vaccination efforts. So I know he's had some requirements that he's put in place for federal workers and various things. And there's definitely an element of people in the country that are upset about it. And I think, like Vespali said, eventually there's probably going to be a court case where it's going to be decided if it's lawful. And he believes pretty strongly that there's precedent that it is.
And anything else?
Yeah, we have a sad story. Unfortunately, there was a death in North Vancouver at a site. We're still getting details. There was a collapse of some kind. One person was sent to the hospital with unknown injuries, but police that I talked to said they don't believe that injury was life-threatening. But there was a person at the site that they believe is deceased, and it was not safe at the time to go get them. They had to stabilize the site in North Vancouver. And we are going to be having updates on this. But they said that they're pretty confident that the other person is deceased. And, this is coming off the heels of the crane collapse in Kelowna.
Mm-hmm.
And it just underscores that people die on construction sites in 2021. It is a dangerous place to be in some cases. And yeah, it's very sad. And I definitely want to know what happened at the Kelowna collapse. We're still waiting to hear what happened there as that's being investigated. And likewise at this North Vancouver site. We'll see what happened there. I mean, people shouldn't go to work expecting that they might die. That's not okay. So I'm definitely curious to see what happened.
And just for a little hint, a story I've got coming out on Friday, I believe, I will be talking to the head of the BC Crane Safety, or I have talked to the head of the BC Crane Safety Association, and he talks about how they reacted to it, how they sort of had plans in place for not specifically what happened in Kelowna, but they already were sort of working towards more crane safety certification and different ways of regulating this, sort of getting ahead of the government because they think it'll take longer if the government does it, so they want to proactively do it themselves. So look for that on Friday.
Yeah, I've definitely done a bit of reporting on this as well. And dismantling a crane is, and doing the counterweighting and all this stuff, it can be an extremely complex, precise process. And
specialized, very specialized.
Specialized, yeah.
And from the East Daily Commercial News, staff writer Don Wall wrote that a recent survey found a large majority of small and medium-sized employers in Ontario will be implementing mandatory vaccination policies for their workers. The employers have concluded the policy is not only the best way to meet legislated workplace safety obligations, but also the best way to keep their workplaces safe, suggests Ontario employment lawyer Norm Keith of KPMG Law LLP. Keith is advising the Ontario General Contractors Association on workplace vaccination policy. KPMG in Canada found that 62% of Canadian small and medium-sized businesses are making or planning to make COVID-19 vaccinations mandatory for their employees. And it's back to school time, and staff writer Angela Gismondi is working on a story about George Brown College in Toronto, partnering with Toronto Hydro to offer the Electromechanical Engineering Technology Power and Control program for the first time this September. The first cohort will consist of 25 students. A total of 4 Toronto Hydro entrance scholarships will be awarded to the 2021-2022 academic year, 2 available to all students and 2 for women. Angela will speak to those involved in the program about what skills students will learn, job opportunities, and recruiting more women to the program. And up next, we have our first CanaData Quick Hit, where we have an interview with construction research lead for Jones Lang LaSalle, Henry Desposito, who will be speaking on September 29th at the CanaData virtual conference. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our CanaData Quick Hit segment, where we talk to some of the speakers who are appearing at the CanaData conference later in September. With me, I have
Henry Desposito.
And Henry, what's your talk going to be at CanaData?
So I'll be talking about the labor shortage and how it'll be impacting construction, how it's changed in the years from prior to the pandemic, and kind of this post-pandemic recovery that we're moving into.
Okay, and what are some of those changes?
Yeah, well, across a lot of the U.S. and across Canada too, for a long time we've had a skilled labor shortage, and that's been tough for specific trades and specific cities. And what we've seen now with how quickly the economy is growing post-pandemic is that that's really transferred into a sort of broad-based across the whole economy labor shortage. So as other industries outside of construction start to pick up demand for workers, start to raise their wages, that's putting pressure on construction to compete more for fewer workers, raise wages, increase costs, and have to spend more time managing getting the right workforce on the job site.
Okay, and I'm of the impression that the construction weathered through COVID pretty well, all things considered, because we kind of had PPE to begin with, and there was social distancing you could do, but they adapted. But maybe you can tell me otherwise. Maybe it didn't fare as well as I think it did.
I would say construction overall did fare well. It wasn't perfect though. There was Q2 of last year, if you think back at least to US numbers, the construction industry, there were roughly 1 million workers who were laid off in those 2 months of March and April of last year. That was something around 15% of the total construction workforce. So that was obviously a very tough short period. The good news was that in the next few months, the vast majority, I think over 85% of those workers were brought back on. So it was a very quick hit, a very quick dip and back up, as opposed to some other industries where that impact lasted a lot longer and still haven't fully come back.
Okay, and finally, in your bio, it says you're a millennial, which is honestly a lot different than most of the other speakers. So how did millennials fare during this? Did they do better or worse? Were they able to adapt quickly, or was it because of what labor millennials are traditionally, in quotes, in? Did that cause a problem?
I don't think it caused a problem. On the one hand, kind of like you mentioned, the average construction worker is not a millennial. The average age of a construction worker in the US has increased every year. And one of the big challenges with the labor shortage is how many folks are retiring or reaching retirement age, and how that's a bigger number than the amount of young folks joining the industry. So that challenge, was a piece of it. But on the flip side, sort of outside of labor, one thing we've seen is that the pandemic did force a lot of contractors and subcontractors and other folks in construction to switch toward more technology tools. So, online schedule management and virtual tours and all these other new construction tech functionalities. And that typically is something that for a younger, digital native generation, that's an easier move for them in the workforce. So that's a bit of a leg up.
Okay, and if you'd like to hear more from Henry, he is talking on Wednesday, September 29th at the CanaData virtual conference, and you can come to the Daily Commercial News or Journal of Commerce websites to find out more information, or the CanaData website to find out more information about the conference itself. Thanks. If you'd like to hear more episodes of TCR Express or of the Construction Record podcast on Fridays, you can go to Amazon Music, Spotify, or Apple Music, or the Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks for listening, everybody.